Well, kia ora, and welcome to a mini hoon here on the Kaka. I'm Bernard Hickey, and with us is Andrea Black, who works for the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists and has written a big new and I think very interesting report on the health of New Zealanders titled Managed Decline, the Health of New Zealand 2011 to 2024. Which looks in particular, I think that's interesting, at the health of our workforce. Could you tell us, Andrea, what you've found and where you've got this information from?
Sure, no problem. Well, every year since at least 2012, the Ministry of Health does a survey of a representative sample of New Zealanders, and they're asked a lot of questions about their health. And one of the questions they get asked is to give what they call self-rated health. There are 5 options: excellent, very good, good, fair, and poor. And they're asked to rate themselves. And what, because this comes out every year, what the sort of accumulation of all these reports or surveys have shown is in the last sort of 12 years, people who assess themselves as having excellent health has gone down by almost 9 percentage points or 40%. And people who have assessed themselves as having fair health have gone from about 10% of the population to about 14% of the population. And those numbers in and of themselves don't seem large, but when you compare 12 years ago, 10% of the population said they had fair health, and now 14%, that's a 40% increase. And that has potentially quite large implications for the health system. I'm saying that as 80% of the determinants of health are outside the health system hasn't caused this, but the health system will be bearing the brunt of it. And those numbers relate to adults over 15, and the numbers just kind of skew that little bit larger when you deal with the under 65s.
Yeah, but because this is a very important for, obviously people's health and well-being. No one likes everyone else to be unhealthy or feeling bad. But from a purely economic point of view, we rely so much on people working and paying their taxes and producing things, and we are relying also on people between the age of 15 to 65 to pay for the pensions and the healthcare of people over the age of 65. What's gone on here in terms of the reduction in reported health? Why have we seen it deteriorate, do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I spent however long just working the numbers out. But what we do know is key determinants of health are things like housing, incomes, education, welfare, nutrition. And the Simpson report said that 80% of determinants of health were outside the health system, which is like those ones. So you would expect that those were the causes, shall we say, of ill health. Interestingly, I posted to LinkedIn today, and quite a senior employment lawyer came on and said this is exactly what she's seeing too. People are really burnt out and their health is really bad. And one thing I found interesting with that point is the deterioration from excellent through very good, good kind of lands at fair health. And people in fair health are more likely to still be at work. The poor health ones had a look at some stats numbers, and there are about 22,000 more people out of work due to ill health than would have been the case if the 2012 numbers had prevailed. Sorry, there's a bit going on there. And 22,000 is not great for the individuals concerned, and probably for our members, they're seeing every one of those 22,000. but most people are still in the labour force, but they're potentially burnt out and not as healthy as they could be. And the question is, how long do people stay in fair health for before they move into poor health, which has all those implications that you're talking about? You know, you're not at work, you're possibly on a benefit, or you're being supported by a partner if the welfare system isn't doing it. So, yeah, I mean, the report was being finalised about the same time that the Treasury published their long-term inside briefing, and they, as you know, as they always do, are pointing out the number of people in paid work compared to those over 65. And I'm thinking, blimmin' heck, you know, the implicit assumption in that is that these people are, the two that are still in work, are as healthy as they have been in the past. And I don't think we can assume that anymore.
Yeah, you've had a crack at trying to work out what the sort of cost of this deterioration in health is in economic terms, and also not just to the hospital system, because there'll be relatively more people going into hospital, going into A&Es. There seems to be an awful lot at the moment,
Yeah.
and also, you know, the lost productivity, if you like, in the economy. Can you give us a sense of the numbers here?
Yeah, sure. In terms of like the economic costs, there were two I looked at. One was kind of loss of wages for people being outside the workforce more than would have been the case in 2012. And that's the 22,000. And that's between $1 and $2 billion. Earlier this year, a group called Umbrella Wellbeing had an estimate of presenteeism, which I think is, you know, probably more likely when you've got the people in fair health. And so I did basically an imputing backwards and came to about $1.5 billion again, and probably because these people will still be being paid, lost productivity for their employers. There was some fiscal costs, and also I had a go at kind of pricing or costing the loss of well-being from having less good health. And for physical health, came to about between 2.5 and 3.5 billion. But if we looked at it from a perspective of increase in psychological distress, because that's another finding in these reports, because the Treasury numbers, they give mental health a much bigger number, you know, that can be between 6 and 8 billion. I mean, you don't add them all up, and they're just really numbers to give some idea of the problem. Yeah.
How could we solve this?
Yeah, no, I think that's outside kind of my skill set and my briefing, and with the employer I'm representing, Bernard. Yeah, I mean, I'd go back to the social determinants and the things the employment lawyer, you know, good things that we know make you healthy. Good houses make you healthy. Decent work makes you healthy. A comfortable income makes you healthy. Reasonable education, a relationship with others, and the kind of the really sad part, if you take the, you know, like economic part away, is that when you're less healthy, you know, you don't show up so much in your family, you don't engage with your children, you aren't helping in the community, and I think that's probably what comes out when there's such a big number for social costs.
Andrea Black, who's just produced a report for the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists, thanks very much for coming on to a mini hoon on the Kaka.
A pleasure, Bernard.